Andy Haynes told me something that floored me. Comedy used to challenge power. Now he says it's become a weapon for it. Mm.
And people's like the way we talk about groups of people and um the way we make fun of people, it has gravity in the real world, right? Like
Mhm.
if we make light of these kind of and the rule was always, up until that era, it was kind of you punch up. Punching down
Mhm.
is not funny.
Mm.
There's people that can
Yeah.
do it with nuance, but it was kind
Yeah.
of like you punch up because punching down is cheap.
So Andy Haynes is a writer, stand-up comic, and actor from Seattle, Washington, and he lives in New York City. His
Mhm.
stand-up can be seen on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, Conan, Comedy Central Presents, The Pete Holmes Show, and Comedy Central's Roast Battle. His debut album, Greatest Hits, was released in 2014. He is a paid regular at both the Comedy Store in LA and the Comedy Cellar in New York City. He has been featured in Another Period, which is on Comedy Central, Adam Ruins Everything on True TV, and most recently in Loosely Exactly with Nicole Byer. Andy served as the head writer for Hot Takes with Brandon Wardell on Comedy Central and was the creator and star of After Sheldon with Andy Haynes on Jash. He is the creator of the animated show The Champions for Bleacher Report. He has a weekly comedy podcast called Beautiful Boys with Mike Cannon about careers, parenthood, and marriage, which often segues into politics. Andy is known for his dry, sharp commentary about all kinds of topics, from the everyday to US cultural trends, and why I have him on today for his humor about politics. Did I miss anything? That is quite a resume.
No, I think that was pretty up to date. I don't think I've
Okay.
looked at my IMDb for quite a while. I don't do a ton of acting and official show business stuff these
Mm-hmm.
days because
Yeah.
everything's moved to the internet. But but yeah, that's you nailed it.
All right, nice. Well, yeah, you have quite a social media following on Instagram in particular, don't you? I think you have like 150,000 or something like that
I think it's like
followers.
115, yeah,
Okay,
but it's
okay.
it's still more than I deserve. I don't know why
Oh,
that many
it's
people
great.
are.
I'm
Um,
impressed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's definitely affirming to have people follow you for your comedy, but it's kind of the Wild West. I kind of liked it when there was gatekeepers that could like choose you and then give you jobs. And now you
Right.
have to like prove that everybody likes you and then they give you
Yeah.
jobs. So it's
Yeah.
uh
Yeah. I know.
it's
Just
a
yeah.
learning curve.
Yeah, it really, I mean, that's one thing I've learned with this podcast. It's just me. And so I'm trying to build up my following. And when I first got started, I was trying to do it on everything, on all of the social media,
Hmm.
and it's just impossible. I just don't have the bandwidth. So I sort of just shrunk it to YouTube for now to try to build that up and then kind of go from there. But it is interesting how things have reversed with that.
Yeah, for sure. I have to like pay a like a team to help me
Yeah.
because and they're like my buddies. It's not like I have a company, but just because it's like so much bandwidth to be creative and punctual and then like a partner and a parent and then also like edit, SEO market, whatever it is. Like comedy has really changed. When I started, social media was a thing, but it was, very nascent and, some people were really good at it. And then there would be people that kind of like gravitated towards social media as like their main medium. And it was like more sketch and stuff like that. But around the pandemic, it became mandatory within our
Mm.
field.
Hmm.
And I'm not like a Luddite. Like I can handle some tech stuff, but it's a lot. You have to be kind of every single aspect of a small marketing agency.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Yeah.
also be a good comic. So it's a lot.
Yeah, which is a lot because you're working on your material. And that's, I think, so I did a teeny tiny bit of comedy back in 2012. I had
Okay.
an opportunity to do a documentary called Comedy Warriors Healing Through Humor. And they
Uh-huh.
took five, I'm a military veteran. So they took five of us and taught us how to do comedy. And it was like it was a super cool experience. I got to work with like Bob Saget and Lewis Black. But
Awesome.
after the documentary, I was like, I'm going to try to do this on my own. And I had a toddler at home and
Oh,
we had
wow.
just moved to Southern California. And I said, I'm not sure this is like, it's just, I wasn't at the time of my life for it. And it's hard. I don't think people realize how
Yeah,
hard it
I
is.
don't ever suggest anybody do it. Like,
Yeah,
like sometimes somebody will, sorry if you can hear my dog.
I can't, but no worries.
She's losing her mind about something. But I sometimes people will be like, you know, oh, I'm thinking about getting into comedy. Like it'll be like somebody I meet in like a professional setting, like somebody that's like I don't know, works for an ad agency that maybe I'm doing some work for, or, like an audience member or like a friend of a friend. And they'll have like this great life. Like they'll like have a good paying job and they'll have a girlfriend or a wife and everything seems, and I get it. It's easy to get bored. You want to follow your dreams, et cetera, et
Sure.
cetera. But when somebody like that tells me that they're thinking about getting into stand up, I'm like, all I hear is like, I'm thinking about trying heroin. Like it's like, you're gonna be you're going to be broke with roommates and
Right.
divorced in 5 years if you
Exactly.
go down this road.
Yeah, it's true. That's a great example too, because it is also very addictive to perform and write and hopefully have people laugh at you, or laugh at you or laugh with you. It's super addictive also. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no well-adjusted person
no,
tries it and wants to keep doing it. It's
right.
just it's an insane way to base your self-worth on like just a random group of slightly buzzed people. At best slightly buzzed, mainly drunk,
Right. Yeah,
you know.
true, true. And when you're first starting out, I was like, I would like be a stay-at-home mom during the day to my toddler. My son was, I think, 2 or 3 at the time. And
Hmm.
then my husband would come home, have dinner, and then drive out to like Hemet for an open mic. And the
Oh man.
people there didn't know there was going to be comedy. It was like we
Yeah.
just put it on them and it
Ambush
was horrible.
comedy.
They did
I've
not
been
want
in
us there.
I've been at shows like that. I've been
Yeah.
at shows where we had to turn off a game to do the comedy
Ooh,
and people were not happy about it.
no.
So
No, they're
so
not going to laugh.
I try to avoid ambush comedy these days. I luckily I've done it long enough that I don't really run into that problem, but
That's good.
it
That's
still can
good.
happen on the rare occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of that, I mean, how did you like what got you into comedy initially?
Um I was a summer camp counselor, and a big part of that was doing like campfires or like kind of doing presentational stuff for kids. And
Mhm.
you had to make it funny. And I'd always kind of wanted, I was like liked attention. And the more I did the campfire stuff and doing skits and stuff like that, the more I kind of wanted to do creative stuff and like outside of camp. I think I always wanted to be like a filmmaker or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of not doing anything towards that. I was just like, oh, that'd be cool to do that. And then randomly I saw this Bill Hicks DVD. And I'd heard
Mm,
of Bill Hicks, but I'd never been like a big comedy person.
yeah.
Like I liked comedy, but I didn't know that much about it. And then I watched this Bill Hicks DVD and it was like it was in the early 90s, so he was talking about the first Iraq War, he was talking about the first Bush, he was
Mm,
talking about all these things that had kind of resurfaced in the early 2000s, And I was like, oh, like the Iraq War had just started, the second one, and we were about to start the second term with George W. Bush, and it was just kind of like, oh, this is like I could talk because I've always been kind of a lefty politics person.
Mhm.
I'm from Seattle, I can't help it, but so as a result, I just was like, oh, I'll try that, and then I think I just started ingesting comedy, and then I was like, oh, what do I do? And I was like, I knew that open mics were a thing. So I
Mhm.
just started Googling open mics and I found one. I went to college at this point. It was my senior year of college, and um I would drive like 90 miles to Seattle from my college town to do these
Oh,
open
wow.
mics.
Yeah.
But the first one I went to, everybody was so bad that I was like, oh, like if everybody's bad, then it's not that scary. And then
It's true.
I did it, and I don't even really remember. I think it was 3 minutes or something like that. And it didn't go awful. I think, I
Yeah.
think I got a chuckle here and there. I think there was a glimmer of something, and
Mhm.
I never stopped doing it. And I actually,
Wow.
the first night I did it was like December 17th, 2004 or something. And the
Mhm.
next open mic that I tried to go to was like Christmas Eve. And
Oh,
as soon as I left that open mic, because it didn't happen because it was Christmas Eve, I didn't know they
oh,
did that.
oh,
Um,
right.
I turned on the radio in my car, and it was like that big tsunami had happened
Oh,
in
yeah.
Indonesia and like all over Southeast Asia. And so it's like I have a very, I
Hmm.
very much know when I started
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
comedy.
That's when you said, yeah, this is it. This is it for me.
Yeah, I think, like any millennial kind of like raised in liberal, affluent America, you kind of are told to follow your dreams, and you don't necessarily know what your dreams are. And also because our parents are boomers, like
Hmm.
a lot of parents are not going to be like, you should do this, They're going to
Right.
be like, follow your dreams, but also I want nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
So I kind of just lived in that nebulous, like, follow your dreams, but also I don't know what my dream is.
Yeah.
And, I had a single mom who was kind of like overwhelmed for most of the
Hmm.
90s,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and had a lot of Zinfandel. So she wasn't, she was supportive, but she didn't have the tools to be like, oh, my ADHD son like needs to be in the arts. We have to foster this.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was
Like we
barely
would
getting
do
by.
now, like as
Yeah, of
parents.
course. Yeah.
Now it's like I know for me, I'm considered Gen X, but barely. And with my son, I'm like, okay, he's only 13. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's really good at this. I want him to, explore this, and I want to explore this, and I want to explore this. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he's probably gonna end up being like, I have no idea what I want to do, but I've done everything. you know.
Yeah.
um, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I think that's the way to go. You scattershot it, you find
yeah,
something that sticks.
see
I
what
mean,
happens.
there's a part of me that wants to like make my daughter play piano and like do something, like very regimented. Like I see these like,
Yeah.
because I grew up around affluent people who did like
Hmm.
waspy things.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's part of me that's like, make her play piano until, she's 18. She has to play piano and she has to do something else like a sport. Because I do think that some kind of structure does like breed success. Like there's like
Yeah.
something that rich people do to their kids that just makes them also rich. I mean, it helps that they give them money,
Right.
but they teach them how to operate in the world as like a successful person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up very like on the margins of middle class where
Hmm.
we were just trying to get by.
Yeah.
Everything was fine, but it was,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ennui. There was a lot of ennui, which I
Right.
don't think I could define, but you get it.
Anyone who's seen Inside Out too knows what ennui is, right?
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
true.
Yeah,
Great.
that's how it does it. But I know,
Thank
I know,
God for,
I was the same way. My parents were boomers, but I was relatively privileged, and it was like, girl power. You can do whatever you want, go for it. But I had all these interests, the ADHD brain, and did everything, and then went to college and was kind of like, oh, wait, am I supposed to pick something I don't don't really know. So I went into the army to delay that decision, and then I got out of the army. I was like, well, I still don't know what I want to do. But journalism is it, but it took me till I was probably about 35 to
That's
figure it
fine.
out.
We're gonna live longer, so it's
Yeah,
okay.
that's right. That's right. Solid career. I thought about law, and my dad, the judge, said, don't do it.
Yeah, that's
All
good
right.
advice.
Yeah, I know it really was good advice. Well, what do you think the role of comedy is in our culture? I think most people look at it as, haha, that's funny. I think a lot of people don't want a lot of serious jokes, but comedy can be very subversive also. So, what do you think? What do you think is the role?
Well, I think like, at its core, comedy is supposed to be like a kind of a reflection of popular culture and a critique
Mm-hmm.
of the at the same time. Whatever that is. Some people do great comedy that is not that, and there's a lot of comedy that's purely entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I personally, I was watching Sean Penn on the Actors Studio when I was right around the same time that I started, and I remember he said, he goes, a movie costs $50 million. So I don't want it just to be entertainment. I want it to, because if I just need entertainment, I'll go buy an 8 ball and get two hookers. Um, I don't co-sign that, by the way, but that was Sean Penn's words. But it
Right.
like stuck with me that like if you're gonna do something, you should have some kind of, even if it's as simple as just making people laugh so that they feel better, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you bring some levity to people's lives, because, life is hard, especially, um, for a ton of people and a ton of reasons. And so I think comedy, is that pressure valve for a lot of people, but it's really morphed into kind of a ugly thing over the last, are you still there? Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah.
I just got a call and it was,
Oh, okay.
it like messed up it started ringing in my ears. I'm going to put on do not disturb.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
yeah, so you know, I, uh, I think it's kind of morphed into this thing where around the election of Trump won, and before that, in some instances, um, we kind of had 2008 to 2016, we had like this big awakening, and I don't know if it was universal, but popular culture kind of started to say like, hey, like a joke has consequences,
Mm-hmm.
and people's like the way we talk about groups of people and um the way we make fun of people, it has gravity in the real world, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if we make light of these kind of and the rule was always, up until that era, it was kind of you punch up. Punching down
Mm-hmm.
is not funny.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that can
Yeah.
do it with nuance, but it was kind
Yeah.
of like you punch up because punching down is cheap, punching down is mean.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the reaction to the kind of like what people call wokeness
Right.
was like this complete rejection of everything that it stood for. And
Mm-hmm.
comedy became the like poster child for this, where it
Mm-hmm.
was like guys were so mad that they were being told they couldn't make jokes about things
Right.
or that they couldn't you know, say certain things, and then that became have people on their podcast or work with people who, it's like pretty simple stuff. It was like, hey, this guy's like been accused of sexual assault. Maybe we don't like just like
Mm-hmm.
have a like chat with him. Or
Right.
this guy said that like Latinos are like a virus in
Mm-hmm.
America. And
Right.
then, maybe we don't just softball this guy like, what's a Sunday look like for you? Who are you supporting this year in the Super Bowl? Like,
Right.
and that also got that kind of like pushback to where it became this culture war kind of thing where comedy that said whatever they wanted to and comedy that was what we would call edgy, at one point.
Right.
it kind of became the rallying cry for this like
Mm.
free speech, conservative, libertarian movement.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely like I have close friends that are, you know, the very, at the front of these
Mm.
kind of groups of people. And a lot of them are really just comics at heart, but they've been so co-opted into this culture that they've become rich and famous. And I think
Mm.
that they're on a little bit of a ride. They're not going to,
Right.
we don't know where our next meal comes from, so everybody's
Right.
trying to get what they can.
Yeah.
But it's become kind of it's become something else. Comedy is not
Mm.
just like I'm going to show up and be entertained for the afternoon. It's become kind of like a us or them. And there's,
Mm.
there's comics who still do it. Like I don't think Nate Bargatze brings up anything
Mm.
political.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing comic. And I think
Yeah.
that, the majority of his fan base is probably white Christian people, which is
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
But it's also with the rebuke of kind of the liberal comic or the woke comic per
Mm.
se. Um, it's become kind of I don't know, it's just like it's a different beast altogether. I do feel like the
Yeah.
ship is riding
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's one thing for Joe Biden's presidency to make all these jokes where you're like making fun of these dark things, ICE,
Hmm.
fentanyl, human trafficking,
Right.
illegal, what do you call it? Undocumented immigrants, whatever
Oh,
it
right.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're making trans people,
Yeah.
and these are not my jokes, by the way. These are like the
Yeah.
jokes
Yeah.
that would at one point
Right.
be considered edgy or whatever. But when you actually see people, being like taken off the streets and
Yeah.
now we have these like SNAP benefit situation going on
Right.
where families
Hmm.
aren't going to have food. Like to
Yeah.
go up there and be a millionaire in
Yeah.
Austin and be like a lot of hungry people, like some
Yeah.
crass joke, like that doesn't
Right.
fly anymore. Like there's real
Yeah.
consequences. And I do think that, my personal stance on it and something that I've had to come to reckon with because I've made jokes that have been, not great. That, there's
Hmm.
jokes that I tell sometimes that I'm like, oh, that probably like hurts somebody's feelings in the room. And I think a lot of people across the board would argue that that doesn't matter. But for me, I
Hmm.
think it does have real world consequences. And I think
Yeah.
that, like I said earlier, I think when you laugh at somebody like their existence, it opens the door for you to treat them less than human.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting because I hadn't actually heard that term, you punch up and not down, because I think what I'm seeing now is, I don't know, I think this is a moment for political criticism, and like you were saying, um, comedy, like, yes, you're going to entertain, but also you have a microphone and you have a platform, you know, and there's something about humor that softens things a little bit, even if it's also like a little biting, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky time because, I mean, you've got, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. I mean, I think even President Trump went against Seth Meyers recently, just because they're making jokes about the president, or political criticism. So I don't know. Do you ever fear any kind of retribution? Because you tell some edgy, and like you said, you're kind of on the liberal side.
I would love some real high profile retribution. That would be great for me.
I know, right?
Um, but I fear I fear complacency.
Hmm.
Um, I think that something that, I don't want to be like, I'm such an empath or something like that. But I think something that does make comedy harder for me is that I do really care about people's feelings.
Hmm.
And so when somebody tells me like a joke upsets them, I don't go like, fuck you, I'm gonna fucking, like I go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. Like at least I'm
Yeah.
sorry, even if I disagree with them.
Yeah.
And So what I mainly fear is I fear the real stuff that's happening, specifically to trans people and
Mhm.
people that are undocumented or perceived as
Mhm.
undocumented.
Yeah.
Um, but I get to live in a very privileged thing, which is I am a high, not that high profile, but I'm a high profile straight white guy.
Mhm.
So if they start
Right.
coming for me, I think, it's that'll be a first for
Right.
American history. But yeah, like I don't really fear for myself. It's sometimes, like I'll get like a weird kind of stalkery. I haven't actually gotten like a death threat, but I've gotten some like, weirdos that DM me stuff that's kind of like
Mm.
cryptic. And I'll go like,
Mm.
oh God, I don't love that they know where I'm gonna be next weekend because I
Yeah,
have to
that's true.
advertise my shows.
That's
But
true. Yeah.
but I don't think I'm that big of a fish. It might happen
Right.
later
Right.
on where I get
Yeah.
real scared. But
Right.
I
Sort of
think
like you want that to happen because you'd be more high profile, but you obviously don't want that to happen either because that's scary stuff.
yeah, I don't want like somebody to try to kill me, but I would
No.
love to get like detained by ICE. That would be great for me.
Ooh, that's true.
So
That's
if they're
true.
listening, come on.
They probably
Just
are.
just make sure it's
Apparently.
like make sure where someone has like a good, like a good group of cell phone footage because
Right. Yeah.
I need
Oh,
the
yeah.
clips.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That'd be good. It's funny that we think that way too. I mean, I'm not a comic, but as a journalist, you kind of, have to think that way, like, oh, that would be like one thing I've done on TikTok mostly is opened up like done this like convince me kind of
Hmm.
segment where I say this is my opinion, but if you disagree with me, I want you to disagree with me, because I
Yeah.
think we need to have better political discourse these days. But I also was like, before I pressed post, I was like, ooh, this could be really bad.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. I mean, even like I'm not built for the like just the purely online,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll go into the comments and somebody will
Oh.
hit an insecurity of mine that I didn't even know, like I hadn't enunciated it and they knew it.
Oh.
Um, so it's just on like a personal level.
Oh my
But
gosh.
my daughter's knocking on the door. Um,
Oh.
she's very cute. If I shared her face in public, I would bring her on.
No,
Um,
I hear you. I hear you.
but um,
Protect that girl.
I think it's like it's not quite to comedy yet, like the kind of like attack on us.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think journalism right now is in a really gross place because almost, I don't know, 90% of mainstream media is owned by like a collection of a few guys. And
Yeah.
even if they're not conservative, they're capitalists. So like
Mm-hmm.
if the president can sue them or somebody else, the justice system can affect their bottom line, like they're gonna probably
Mm-hmm.
like get in line for whatever like that's what we see with the Stephen Colbert and the Jimmy
Yeah.
Kimmels and Paramount and was it
Yep.
CBS News that got
60 minutes.
yeah,
They took away the producer, or their
like
producer resigned, and yeah.
these really kind
Yeah.
of assaults on free speech, which by the way,
Mhm.
hilarious that it's the only thing that these people could talk about for a decade was free speech, and then they're
I know.
gladfully
I know.
accepting that. But I don't
Yeah.
think we're far off from, I mean, special interest kind of dominating our entire mainstream journalism. And that's great
Mhm.
that there's like a whole slew of people doing it on YouTube and things like that. But it's also scary because Zuckerberg,
Mhm.
the Google guys,
Yeah.
Elon, the guy who just bought TikTok, they're all real close. And so I
Mhm.
don't think it would be hard for them to make that algorithm make us very tiny. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what the next step is, but that's the one thing that like kind of gives me hope at the moment is that there's a lot
Mhm.
of independent journalists out there and
Yeah. Yeah,
people
there
doing
are.
that work.
There are. It's hard to get in there. Like I like Aaron Parnas. I don't know if you follow him at all, but You might recognize the last name because his dad worked for Trump in the first administration.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's Lev Parnas,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a great following on Substack mostly, but he posts on Instagram also. And he's I mean, he's on the liberal side, but he's not super biased, you know. He's really interesting. Like I feel like you're getting straight shot, you know, kind of news from him. But yeah, it's still though, it's scary with the who's controlling things right now, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want I definitely want there to be more parity in the
Mm,
way we approach this conversation. I
hmm,
mean, I don't think we're winning anything by like calling everybody yokels and dumbasses. I
yeah.
think there's a lot of anger on both sides, but with comedy, I like that's something I had to learn was like you know, I'm like a white guy that grew up in liberal Seattle, and you know, but we're snobby people. Like it's like it really is kind of like Frasier. It's like people that like, you know, they talk about the arts, and we go to these restaurants that are very hard to get into, and you know, and then somebody's like upset about the mill closing or something, and we're,
Mm,
you know, kind of like totally
mm,
disconnected from that experience, even though most of America can't do that. Most of America
right.
doesn't go to like a Broadway show or
Yeah.
a Pinter play and then like go and get like Spanish tapas at a fusion restaurant. Like that's just like not the reality of most people. And it took me a long time to like get out of that. Like I remember it's interesting that you say you're a vet because I was so critical of the Iraq War and I didn't know what I was doing, but when I first started doing comedy, I was like so critical of the Iraq War and I was so inexperienced, but also like talking about this heavy subject that I would go up on stage and I would try to tell these jokes and I would like alienate half the audience
Mm,
and or just piss people off. And it was just like I remember getting off stage and just being so unhappy about how that went. And then I remember I was in Olympia, Washington, doing just some little show. I wasn't the headliner or anything. I was just doing, you know, the opening act type of thing. But there was like these two guys in the front row, and they were like early 20s, super, super buff, shaved heads,
mm,
and they were like really like kind of absent.
hmm,
They had kind of like a 1,000 yard stare going
mm,
on. And as the show went on, I saw him giggle a couple times and I saw him laugh at a couple big jokes. I didn't really, you know, by this time I'd kind of like settled down and stopped talking. You know, I was talking more about sex and drugs or whatever. I'm sober,
right.
so I have some good stories.
Yeah.
And then
Me
they
too.
came up to me after the show and they're like, "We just got back from Iraq, like
Oh,
like 4 days ago."
oh my gosh.
And I haven't laughed for 18 months.
Wow.
And I was just like,
Wow.
sure, I oppose war.
Right.
Like, I don't love war. And I
Hmm,
think that I have a lot of critiques about the US military industrial complex. I
hmm,
also never want to critique the people that are part of it because I know that that is like such a important part of American identity and also upward mobility for people and things like that.
hmm.
Like I don't want to disenfranchise because that's real for
Yeah.
people. And but I
Yeah.
in that moment I was like, oh, I gotta like figure this out because
Yeah.
I if I can make that guy laugh at my liberal bullshit, those guys, or even if I can just
Yeah.
make those guys have a
Yeah.
decent day, then that's what this is. That's so much more
Right.
important to me. And also like
Yeah.
if they come and they can like, you know, if I make a bunch of people that hate my point of view laugh at what I'm talking about, I kind of bring them a little closer to me, at
Hmm.
least in the sense that I'm not their enemy, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And I think, I know for me, what made me more liberal is serving in the military because, and I served in Iraq for a year as well. And I think when you first get back, you're very protective of your experience. You know, you're like, I did this, and I was asked to do it, and I did it. But as you get, you know, I got back from Iraq in 2006 and I got out of the army in 2007. So I've got some distance from it.
Yeah.
And just the way I process things is a lot through that lens. Cause that's, you know, when you're 22 years old, that's a formative time in your life anyway. And then you're thrown into, even if you don't get a
Yeah.
war, you're thrown into intensity, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's my way of thinking changed a lot because it also brought in my worldview, you know.
Mhm.
I would have never gone to Iraq if it had not been
Yeah. Yeah.
for that, and or the Middle East or whatever. And but it's, as a veteran, you're just always, I think, very conflicted because I think a lot of Iraq vets are kind of looking back on their experience in Iraq, going, what were we doing and why were
Mhm.
we there? But also, but I still did it, you know. So you're
Yeah. And
always, your brain is always like
yeah, I
cycling, you
don't
know.
think that we should, you know, that the people that serve in the army, for the most part, um, are not dying to go to another country and subjugate a people or
Right. Yeah.
inflict harm or kill. I mean, you get the
Yeah.
you get the you know because you
Every
were there.
once in
You
a
get
while. Yeah.
you get
But
the
not,
odd psychopath
not
that's dying
generally.
to do
Yeah.
something. But I think for the most part, it's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I come from this like poor part of Texas," and they're like,
Yep.
"I didn't have money for college," or
Yeah.
"I don't have the like path to a job that is going to let me like." Have a family and
Mm-hmm.
get a retirement and things like this, or whatever their family was in it. And then,
Yeah.
more than anything, if I have critiques about the military and
Mm-hmm.
just the way the American government has used the military.
Yeah.
But, like when I think about the army and my biggest critique of it right now is it's like, how are we treating veterans? Because I see a
Yeah.
lot of veterans. I remember I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
because you probably have a lot of people in your life, but like, and I don't have jokes about this because it's obviously not very funny, but
Mm-hmm.
like, like after Afghanistan and Iraq cooled down, there was like just an ocean of people without any kind of tools to deal with
Mm-hmm.
that. And we saw this huge spike in suicides and huge spikes in
Yeah.
domestic abuse and huge spikes in drug abuse. And yeah, that's, I think,
Homelessness.
yeah. And I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
lesson I think that's a lesson for liberals, really, because I
Yeah.
think that's our gray area where we have a really hard time going. I mean, I think that's the biggest problem with like, and I'll let you ask another question because I have a real problem with just talking for so
Oh, it's
long.
fine. This is great.
Um, but I think that's the biggest problem with liberals in America is,
Hmm.
around the end of Obama, we kind of thought we had it, made in the shade.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I said made in the shade. But it was just like we're all eating sweet greens and we have trans friends and we're
Right.
living it up and like the music's good and
Mm-hmm.
everyth's liberal and we're just gonna we're gonna live forever.
Yeah.
And what we didn't realize is that like a huge part of this country was suffering. And meanwhile, like all the leaders of the Democratic Party who were like these liberal heroes, you know, Nancy Pelosi's like sitting on $200 million.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Right.
going to um, French Laundry in Napa Valley for lunches. They're flying in private jets. Whatever it is, it's like such a disconnect because when the Democratic Party was the Democratic Party that like we built as liberals, it really was focused on unions and
Mm-hmm.
and American labor and lifting up the working class into a middle class and lifting up American institutions and infrastructure so that it could serve
Mm-hmm.
Americans. Like
Right.
there was a kind of benign socialism that FDR kind of put into place that was
Mm-hmm.
really beneficial. And that's why we got the 50s and a little bit of the 60s.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but slowly it morphed into a very upper middle class,
Yeah.
upper class type of thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when people in Congress talk about limousine liberals or, these
Right.
Democrats, they,
Mm-hmm.
Democrats are going and they're sitting on boards with like you can't be anti-war and then go sit, at a 5,000 plate
I
dinner
know.
with the
Yeah.
like heads of like Northrop Grumman and GE
Right.
missiles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we spend almost $1 trillion on defense and we are geographically isolated. So it's sort of like, I mean, I'm not saying we don't need defense, but it's, kind of in excess for sure. But you're right. Like, for me, I mean, like I said, I grew up relatively privileged, but I picked a very expensive private school that I wanted to go to for college. And my parents said, yeah, we don't have any money left for you, to go to college. And I said, oh, okay, well, so I joined the army and I wish I had a more patriotic reason. People ask, why did you join, thinking I'd have this patriotic reason, but I'm kind of like, well, I really just wanted to go to this school and, you know,
Yeah.
and
And
it was
that's
money. And, I
totally
mean,
makes
I,
sense.
I had a great experience. I was a helicopter pilot, so I cannot complain at all by my
Cool.
experience, but like, it definitely launches people from a lot, from nothing to something because you get the educational benefits, if you take advantage of them. But I don't
Yeah.
know, it's tricky. All right. So before, I know I promised 45 minutes for you, so I don't want to waste your time. And I know you got a little girl that wants you, but I wanted to ask kind of finally. Um, so in one of your stand-up routines, and I can't remember which one it was, you mentioned something about we don't talk enough about politics when we disagree with each other.
Mhm.
And you told a joke about trans athletes. It was in support of trans athletes, but somebody in your audience said, well, I don't agree. And you handled it very gracefully. I thought,
Oh,
because she
thank
was
you.
kind of mad. But do you think comedy can open up a dialogue on like political topics that are maybe ones you don't want to talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Um, yes, but I think so. Like, I think the dialogue can easily be opened with
Mhm.
the jokes and stuff like that. But the problem with that is like where it lives is in those comments and that back and forth. So I almost think it's like this conversation starter. Have you seen this bit? Do you know
Mm-hmm.
who this guy is?
Yeah.
It can't just live there. Like it has to go back to conversation and people because like, I have like the trans joke that you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
is about I joke that my daughter's so large we're like raising her to compete
Right.
against trans athletes. And then
Right.
I go on to defend
Yeah.
like say like I'm kidding, I support trans athletes, and that's when that woman piped up.
Right. Yeah.
Um but um but I think like if you look at that comment section, it's like thousands
Mm-hmm.
of guys going, men can't be women.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
marriage is between a man and a woman, whatever it is, like just
Right.
these conservative talking points. And then it's 1,000 people telling them they're despicable. And
Right.
the internet gives people this license to say stuff kind of anonymously. And it also can like, if you cater your algorithm, it can really like enforce those
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. So I still think, comedy, it has to get those conversations started in real life. Like you can't
Right.
just live in that,
Yeah.
on every show, there's like a guy who probably doesn't believe in what I believe in, but maybe I make him laugh a little bit and he just kind of relaxes a little bit on
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think people are very political, to be
Yeah.
honest. I
Yeah.
think that people kind of like exist in their circles. I think it's
Right.
kind of a privileged place to be like politics, politics, politics.
Yeah. Yeah. But I kind of feel like too, it's a privileged place to not want to talk about politics because
Yeah, of
right,
course.
like someone who lost their SNAP benefits, although they said they're going to pay it at 50% or something this month, but someone in that space, needs to worry about politics, but honestly, I could probably live my life if I were not who I am
Hmm.
without thinking about politics or, how it affects me. My kid goes to public school, so maybe I would think about it, for that. But that's kind of why I've started that conversation on to social media, even though like it's really scary because I'm like, we got to talk about it because even if it doesn't affect you, it's affecting a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
Obviously.
totally. And I think it's,
Yeah.
like I say this with all sincerity, but kind of lightly. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to us.
Mm,
And
yep.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I would love it if this movement of young people who's like trying to get people off their phones was like so powerful that Apple went out of business. Like I'm a guy, I like trees and rivers and
Yeah.
if I can find a living and I can keep doing comedy, but if I can, find a living outside of this and still
Mhm.
get to do that stuff, I'm pretty happy. I'm not
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
so so I think comedy is important, and I think a lot of people would you say that it's the most important thing or whatever, but I think in general it's like we have to get back to a place where we're like talking to people
Hmm.
who we oppose but who we love and stuff
Yeah.
like that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
those conversations don't need to necessarily happen at Thanksgiving, but they need
Right.
to happen, and they need to happen in a way where it's not like you fucking idiot. I know these people. I
Right.
mean, I get the vitriol. I don't totally get the vitriol from the right now, where there's like this kind of victimhood of like
Hmm.
everybody's out for us.
Right. Yeah.
They got all the institutions.
Right. Everything.
But but I can understand being afraid of change. And I think,
Mm.
I got to step off pretty soon because my daughter keeps on
Yeah. Yeah.
screaming at the door.
I hear you.
But I think that one huge thing was in that process of Obama and wokeness, we kind of forgot that like a majority of this country is straight white people,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
they don't
Right.
live in cities. They don't necessarily
Yeah.
like have these, and it doesn't matter that like they don't that it's not sexy to talk about whatever's going on. And most of America, like day to day, is like go to Starbucks, get a Frappuccino, go to work, after work, maybe run to Costco, maybe save that
Hmm.
for the weekends. You
Yeah.
make a big meal out of stuff that is probably frozen. It's
Hmm.
it's it it's kind of simple, boring stuff, but we like took away the manufacturing base. We told people not to be chauvinist men, and a lot of people, and,
Mm.
and we also stopped really like talking about like white Christian people. And all of a sudden, I think the backlash was just like this feeling of loss, like of
Right.
like
Yeah.
we don't have any identity, and so we have to like latch on to whatever
Mm.
the like strongest voices in the room, and it just happened
Right.
to be this like kind of populist white nationalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's a,
it's
yeah.
okay to make
Right.
fun of all of these people, but you
Right.
see the result.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So yeah.
That's true. That's a really good point. Well, I know you got a little one there begging for your attention, but I really appreciate this interview and
Yeah,
for
thank you so
giving me
much
the
for
time. Yeah, I really do.
this was
Um,
this was lovely.
Thank you for listening to the Journalism of Everything podcast. I am Doris Smith. I'm a freelance journalist and host. If you liked or even hated this episode, please comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else, and let me know what you think. And hit that subscribe button too.